conservative life on Mars because we are living in strange times. Something that I've been looking out for the past 2 years is the story of Shamima Begum. Now, last week, Shamima Begum lost her final appeal to retain her British citizenship and return back to the UK. Most people see her as a security risk and do not want her to come back to the UK. And even as a matter of fact, she is of Bangladeshi descent. Bangladesh has said, we don't want no parts of her, we don't want to touch her, she is not a she is not a citizen of us either. So she was born in the UK, you keep her. So what has happened to this young lady that nobody wants her, and now she's stateless. She doesn't have a country that wants to take her in. What does she do? At the tender age of 15, Shamima and two other classmates made a run for the border to join ISIS. There are plenty of videos of the young girls going through customs, getting on buses, going from Turkey and eventually to Syria. There's lots of footage of these young ladies doing this. She claims to have been an ISIS housewife. Once she got to Syria, she became a housewife and she eventually had 3 kids. All her children have since passed away. She was eventually found in a Syrian refugee camp when ISIS started to fall and go away somewhat. She was found in a refugee camp by Western reporters, and there is a videotape of a reporter giving her paperwork saying that she has lost her British citizenship. And this was like about 2 to 3 days after she had just given birth to her 3rd child. Eventually that child passed away too. Now, she's given quite a number of interviews to Western reporters, and they commonly ask her about current events and her views on things, which I think is a little unfair because she herself stated they don't get news unless the reporters brings it in to them. So a lot of the news that they receive is totally out of context. She made it seem as if, of course, they don't have cell phones, they really don't have a lot of way of getting accurate news. They're in a Syrian camp. You can go online and see the conditions of these camps. So no telling how things were stated to her, and she gave her opinions on a lot of stuff that eventually just didn't do herself any favors. Sometimes she was extremely stoic, nonchalant in all of these interviews, and sometimes she's even praised ISIS and felt their actions were justified. And I would say to you, this is a young lady that is 15 and now she's 24 years old. You don't know how she's living. She has stated that several of the camps that she's lived in were very hostile to her children, the reason why her children passed away. They didn't have medical care or anything there to help kids or to help people, so you're basically dependent on whatever comes by at that time, and there's normally a pecking order to perhaps who gets that care and so forth. And if she was to go in and start bad-mouthing ISIS, you don't know what could have been done or said. And I think it's a little disingenuous for a lot of these Western reporters to ask her these hardball questions. One, she has to look at how she's going to live and protect herself in some of these places. 2, she's only extremely limited to the amount of information that's even given to her, which never seems to get talked about in a lot of the documentaries about her. So I think it's really disingenuous on this. But she gave birth, and one thing to bring up is when she gave birth, more than likely she had nothing more than aspirin to help her with pain, infection, and so forth. I mean, this is just really horrible conditions that she was living under. So last week on the 23rd, the UK basically said this is her third attempt and this is the final attempt for her to get her citizenship back, which would allow her to come back to the UK. And they have said, no can do, we can't do it, you're too much of a security risk for this and so forth. I'm just thinking of, aren't there security risks already in the UK right now? I mean, every country has people in it that are security risks, whether they're mentally crazy, just extremely gruesome and violent. I would just think with this young lady, you just keep her, you try her however you want to and keep her under maximum security. Whether you put a chip in her, have her wear an ankle bracelet, or keep her in a maximum facility where her communications is extremely controlled. There are lots of documentaries about Shamima Begum on YouTube. There's no shortage of information on the young lady, but I think her story needs to be told, not necessarily by her, but by other people. Because again, we're not trying to glorify this, but this should also be used as a cautionary tale on how ISIS and other groups try to groom young ladies that you would be serving a higher good. This stuff is happening here in the United States. I've seen documentaries where young girls who are being raised by their grandparents are being, somehow they have come in communication with somebody from the Middle East saying, you know, why don't you come over here? You'll be loved. You'll be taken care of. You will find you a husband. You will have children and you'll be so happy. That's one side. The other side, they don't tell you the real truth, which is what's happening to Shamima Begum. That once you go over there, you're considered a traitor, and you get tossed around. If your husband dies, they will marry you with another one, and then they expect you to start pumping out kids. So this is definitely a cautionary tale. Conservative life on Mars. We're living in strange times. Tell me what you think of this Shamima Begum. Do you think the UK should allow her to come back?